Welcome back to InfoWars. I'm Roger Stone, sitting in for the great Alex Jones. We are in the midst of the greatest single political scandal in American history. We see the globalists' attempts to steal the election from Donald J. Trump crumbling before our very eyes. We are privileged to be alive at this time, but as we have seen, the mainstream media has grabbed the narrative of the government. The LA Times this weekend insisting on page one that Donald Trump is wrong, that there was no surveillance. This is why InfoWars is so important. This is why this inexorable quest for truth and quality investigative reporting deserves your support. And the best place you can do that, of course, is by going to the Infowars.com store. Now, among the other fine items that you can purchase are my book, The Making of the President 2016. There is an outstanding offer that anyone who purchases through InfoWars, rather than, say, Amazon or some other outlet, will get a personally signed copy. I have provided signatures for 4,600 books so far. My hand hurts, but you can get a great price on this book. You can help the fight for freedom. You can help finance the first-rate investigative reporting. It's being done at InfoWars by going to the site and getting your copy there. Now, I'm going to be joined by a guest I had on the Stone Cold Truth radio show this past weekend. He is CIA whistleblower. I'm going to mispronounce your name here. John Kiriakou, I guess it is. Who was very articulate and impressed me quite a bit on the show, which is why I asked him to be with us here today. And of course, what we want to talk about is Vault 7. That's right, folks. Thanks to WikiLeaks, once again, the deep state's tactics and their ability to manipulate is there for all Americans to see. So welcome to InfoWars. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks for having me.
So outline for our listeners who, in the bustle of their everyday responsibilities, may not be fully aware of what Vault 7 has exposed.
Vault 7 really is a very dramatic revelation, a very dramatic exposure of what the CIA has been up to between 2013 and 2016. That's Barack Obama's second term. Remember, the most transparent president in American history. Well, apparently the most transparent president in American history had ordered the CIA to develop hacks into the iPhone, into the Google Android phone, into the Samsung Smart TV, and even into our cars' computer systems. Now, if you're an intelligence service and you're going after a hostile power, that's all great. If you're going after a terrorist group, or you're trying to target the Iranians or the North Koreans, that's great. But what we don't know, and what many of us suspect, is that the CIA was using this technology, or these technologies, to target American citizens. And for all we know, they may have even used this technology to target then candidate Donald Trump.
It appears that way. It really should not be any surprise that that your handheld device, that your television set, that so many of these electronic devices that we have in our homes and offices can be converted by the government to be listening devices. On the advice of an intelligence professional almost 2 years ago, when I'm having a particularly confidential conversation with, say, Alex Jones or someone else, I will turn the phone off and actually place it in another room. Now, some of my colleagues have told me that that's crazy. That's paranoia. No, I think it's technological reality.
No, I'll tell you, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. When I was at the CIA, and I'm talking about 10, 15, even 20 years ago, when I was at the CIA, it wasn't good enough to shut the phone off or put it into another room, because the CIA can remotely activate the phone so that it looks like it's off, but it's still functioning as a microphone. So what we would do until the days when you could no longer take the battery out of a phone, if you couldn't take the battery out, you would put it in a freezer and close the freezer or refrigerator for that matter, or leave the phone in your car because the CIA from anywhere in the world, whether it's Langley, Virginia or somewhere overseas, they can activate that phone and activate the phone's camera and can record your whole conversation without you even realizing that the device is on.
It seems to me that we've had a never-ending trail of the Central Intelligence Agency getting caught with misdeeds and lies, being dragged before the Congress and swearing they're really sorry, they'll never do it again. Then they go back to Langley, and of course, nothing ever changes.
Mhm.
Uh, I think the president would be wise to clean house at the CIA as soon as possible. I was rather surprised that in the inaugural week he went out to Langley and kissed their derriere. I would not have done so. They are the enemy. They are the tip of the spear for the globalists. And frankly, as they brought John Kennedy down, as they undermined Richard Nixon, they have every intention of undermining and delegitimizing this president.
And keep in mind, Roger, that this is still very much Barack Obama's CIA. These people who rose to the senior most levels of the CIA over the past 8 years did so under President Barack Obama. They served under John Brennan. They served under David Petraeus. They served under his name escapes me now. Obama's first CIA director, Leon Panetta. Leon
Yes.
Panetta. So these guys, while they're career intelligence officers, they came of age under Barack Obama. Now, Jimmy Carter, who was one of the most wildly unpopular presidents inside the CIA, was unpopular for a reason. And it was because he cleaned house. He got rid of a lot of the people who had been caught by the church committee committing assassinations and spying on Americans and doing all the things that the law of the land says the CIA should not be doing. What he ended up doing was firing literally hundreds of senior operations officers in something called the Friday Night Massacre. People at the CIA still talk about the Friday Night Massacre. The truth of the matter is, every once in a while, you need to carry out a massacre at the CIA because the organization becomes too politicized, it becomes too polarizing, and it ends up working against the interests of the president and the country. And you have to clean house.
Well, as you'll recall, after Jimmy Carter appointed Stansfield Turner, the admiral, as the head of the CIA, most of those who were canned in the massacre could later be found over at the George Bush for President headquarters in Virginia. And of course, almost all of them would make their way back into the agency after President Ronald Reagan made the mistake of letting George Bush control the intelligence agencies, essentially gave him the intelligence portfolio for the Reagan years. The abuses at the CIA are legion. No one ever seems to go to jail. No one ever really gets fired. As you know, President John F. Kennedy threatened to what was it, smash the agency
Into a
into
million
1,000
pieces.
different pieces,
Yes.
which I believe played a major role in his ultimate murder. I think it is a factor based on the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis, in which the CIA undermined Kennedy. And if you read my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, I think I make a compelling case, as did James Douglas in his book, John F. Kennedy and the Unspeakable, that the CIA is indeed complicit right there. So the real question, I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked George Niemeyer from American Spectator, because as a CIA veteran, you have, I think, a good perspective on these things. Where does this go from here? Do you think a congressional inquiry will help us get at the truth, or will this become a political circus? And should we have a judicial proceeding in which I think now that Jim pardon me, now that Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, has recused himself, I think prematurely, he still would have the authority to appoint a special prosecutor, somebody of impeccable integrity with a pristine reputation, impanel a grand jury, and begin bringing the Obama security apparatus bosses in front of the grand jury one by one to find out what really happened here.
And that is exactly my position. I don't trust Congress with this at all. And I think it's because Congress has proven, really, since the middle 1980s, to be little more than cheerleaders for the CIA. Dianne Feinstein, for example, when she was the chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, did nothing to stop CIA malfeasance in all the years that she headed that committee. The same thing has happened under Republican leadership. It seems that for whatever reason, members of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence see their jobs as that of just supporting CIA operations. We don't need any outside bodies to be supporting CIA operations right now. We need an organization that can find the truth, that can get to the facts, and determine what, if any, crimes were committed. And I think the only way to do that is with a special prosecutor and paneling a grand jury. I agree with you on that 100%.
Well, it would certainly put so many in the intelligence network in a position where they could no longer dissemble for fear of a perjury charge.
And in fact, if you look back through history, it's only perjury charges and charges of contempt of Congress that have foiled CIA officers in the past. If you go all the way back to the 70s, it's those two charges that have wrapped people up.
You're absolutely right. I'm thinking of the Defense Intelligence Director, James Clapper, under Barack Obama. As you know, he already got caught lying to Congress about how much metadata was being kept on American citizens. 26 senators co-signed a letter accusing him of perjury. One senator demanded his resignation. The House leadership of the Intelligence Committee was in open revolt over his lies. Why should we now suddenly believe Mr. Clapper when he tries to make this all go away with an incredible double whammy of, well, we weren't surveilling the president, and there is no evidence that the Trump campaign was in touch with the Russians. This is an attempt to close the barn door after the horses have already escaped. He has already made this mess. The ashes of Langley are going to come crashing down around his head, and there's nothing now, I think, that they can do about it. This is as inexorable as Nixon's men being caught and being tied back to the Watergate break-in. It is only a matter of time.
I say all the time that the CIA told us that they were not torturing prisoners. There was no torture program. That was a lie. The CIA said that there was no secret prison system being run outside the US judiciary. That was a lie. The CIA said that they were not sending prisoners to third countries to undergo torture. That was a lie. The CIA said that it was the Russians that hacked the US election and practically installed Donald Trump. Absolutely zero evidence that any of that was true. But now they want us to just take their word for it, that they're not spying on Americans and that they weren't spying on Donald Trump. Well, my view is every time a CIA leader opens his mouth, he's lying. So why in the world would we believe him now?
Yeah, put it another way, how can you tell they're lying at the CIA? Their lips are moving. No, I think that you're exactly right. And the president, however, needs to clean house. You have an analogous situation at the FBI. Why he has allowed Mr. Comey, who covered up for the Clintons in the Sandy Berger affair, covered up for the Clintons in the Mark Rich affair, covered up for the Clintons in their initial illegal server controversy, where incredibly he slices and dices all of the things Hillary did in violation of the law and then announces that she won't be prosecuted.
That's right.
That in itself tells you that by election day, when he first on Thursday said he was reopening the investigation based on 650,000 additional new emails. And then on Sunday night, I believe it was, says, well, folks, we went through all 750 or 650. There's nothing there. Mr. Comey has worn out his credibility. He has no more public credibility. It is time for Donald Trump to make Judge Jeanine Pirro the head of the FBI. She was a distinguished prosecutor with a reputation for integrity. And I guarantee you, she's one tough lady, someone I've known for, geez, I guess 30 years, going back to her days as the Westchester County District Attorney. She could clean up the agency. Of that, I have no doubt.
And I also have no doubt that the American people would rally around the president if he initiated a change like that, not just at FBI, but also at CIA. You know, these constant accusations and innuendos are exhausting, not just for those of us here in Washington, but for Americans all across the country. The president can put that to rest and can really put his foot down by getting rid of these malcontents and starting fresh.
Well, the agencies have no credibility with the American people. They have worn out their welcome. I am afraid, however, that they will have a certain number of bureaucrats who have burrowed in to the structure there, and that we will never get rid of them. They are careerists. That does not make them non-neocons, of course. It doesn't mean that they are part of the problem. But the President Trump, is inheriting a mess in both of the major intelligence agencies, a mess in which the American people no longer believe anything coming out of the agencies. When you consider all of the problems that he has to face, and he is taking on, again, like the Republican Party, what is a hostile takeover of the federal government. So our prayers are with him. I hope he will listen to this broadcast and clean house at Langley. Thank you so much, John, for joining us here at Infowars.com and helping us spread the truth and the facts about the Obama effort to subvert the 2016 election.